All right, boys and girls, now we're going to read Chapter 10, Teamwork. You know how people say two heads are better than one? Well, it's true, especially if the other head is Willie's head. When he came over to my house on Saturday morning, we got right to work. First, I showed Willie what I had written down, and I told him how it was my idea to see what made a magnet more powerful, more wire or more batteries. I had an idea, I hadn't I hadn't a guess about it yet. It's called the scientific method. That's in the scientific method, that's called the hypothesis. Willie looked at the stuff and he looked at my notes, and then he said, "More electricity makes an electromagnetic stronger than more wire." I said, "How do you know that?" Willie shook his head. "I don't. That's our hypothesis. More electricity makes our electromagnet stronger than more wire. We have to prove whether or not it's true or false. That's true or false." See what I mean about two heads? In a minute, Willie had a big part of the problem all worked out. I wrote the hypothesis on our notebook. Then came the fun part. I know it might sound weird, but making those electromagnets was really fun. We talked and we argued about stuff, and we tried 6 different ways of winding the wire on the nails, and Willie figured out a great way to keep track of how much wire we were using. We decided to put 150 feet of red wire onto one of the nails. We would put 300 feet of blue wire on the other nail. That was Willie's idea too, to put twice as much wire on the second nail. That way, if it was more wire makes a stronger magnet, maybe the blue magnet would be twice as strong. We started winding wire onto one of the nails. We kept the wire pulled really tight. It was harder than I thought it would be. And if I had to do it all by myself, it would have been really boring. By lunchtime, we had only finished the nail with the red wire, the short wire. For lunch, we had chicken noodle soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. Dad made lunch because Mom and Abby were at the mall taking some clothes back. Graham had given Abby a sweater that went all the way down to her knees. It made her look like a munchkin. Dad said, "It's been pretty quiet up there. How's it going?" Willie said, "We've been winding wire around a nail." Dad said, "If it's taking too long, you could bring things down to the workshop. I bet I could figure out a way to make the nail spin around. That way you could just hold a spool of wire and it would almost wind itself. Sound good?" Willie started to nod his head, but I said, "That sounds great, Dad, but we'd rather do the second nail the same like we did the first one. They should look the same way." I felt a little sorry for my dad. He really wanted to help. It was hard for him to keep out of the way. Then I said, "But when we're done winding the second nail, would you look at them for us?" Dad said, "You bet. Just give a holler when you need me." And I could tell it made my dad feel really good to be invited. When Willie and I finished winding the wire, we looked in one of the books to see how to hook the batteries together. And that's when I called my dad. Because if you hook big batteries together wrong, it can start a fire. And it said in the rules that if anything might be dangerous, an adult should be present. Dad was great. He didn't try to change anything we were doing. He didn't say we should wind the wire some way or another, or some other way. Instead of being a KIA/DIA, he was telling us how to hook up the batteries. He made us think, and telling us how to hook up the batteries, he made us think about it. Then we had to tell him how we wanted to do it. We told him, and Dad said, "That's exactly right. You guys got it all figured out." And he laughed. Mom would have been proud of him. Willie and I decided our first trial should be with just one battery. So we hooked the wire from each end of the red magnet onto the battery. One wire on the positive terminal and the other on the negative terminal. But we didn't have anything to lift with the magnet, so we unhooked the wires and went downstairs to the kitchen. I said, "We need something that's made of iron or steel." And Willie said, "And we have to know how much it weighs because it's said in the science fair booklet to measure everything. So we have to measure the weight of what we pick up." I opened the door to the basement, but Willie said, "Wait a minute. Willie's been at my house many times. He knows where everything is. He opened the pantry and right away I knew what he was doing. He was going to get some cookies. But instead, he grabbed a can off the shelf and said, "Tuna." "Tuna?" I said. "Yeah," said Willie, "tuna. This can of tuna weighs 170 grams, and this can of soup weighs 305 grams, and the cans are made of steel. Here, take some." So I grabbed 8 cans of soup, and he grabbed 4 cans of tuna. If I told you every step in our experiment, it would make you crazy. About how we tried 2 batteries on the red magnet, and then we tried to see if we could pick up a can of soup with the flat end of the nail, and how we used duct tape to stack 2 cans on top of each other so we could try to pick up 2 cans, and how we hooked the 2 batteries up to the blue magnet and then tried to lift the soup cans again, and how we wrote down everything we tried, and then how we hooked up all 4 batteries. But like I said, if I told you it all, you'd go nuts, because me telling it wouldn't be as fun as actually doing stuff with Willie. And he was cracking jokes and making faces and coming up with all these good ideas. It was a great afternoon. And when Willie's dad showed up to take him home, our science fair experiment was practically finished. I mean, we still had a ton of work to do and posters to make and conclusions to write. But Willie and I knew what we knew, and we knew why we knew it. And the best part was all afternoon, I didn't think about Kevin or Marcia or Mr. Lenny Cordo or his Bluntium 12 computer system. Not once. It had been an afternoon of pure fun, which is what science is supposed to be in the first place, right? Right.